When I tell you my parents started charging me rent the moment I turned 18, while my little sister lived in the same house for free, you might think I'm making it up. I wish I were. Stay with me till the end, because what happened after will make you rethink what family really means. I'm Naomi Fields, and I grew up in a small neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia. My parents, Clarence and Denise, always said they wanted to raise strong, responsible kids. But it seemed like that rule only applied to me. My younger sister, Tasha, was their favorite, the one who could do no wrong. She got away with everything, while I had to earn every little thing I got. When I turned 18, instead of celebrating my birthday with a cake or a small gift, my parents handed me an envelope. I thought it was a card or maybe a little money for college. But when I opened it, it was a bill for rent. My own room, the one I had lived in since I was a child, suddenly became my space. And they said I had to start contributing. I remember staring at the paper, not sure if they were joking. But they weren't. I was just starting college then, and I already had 2 part-time jobs, one at a coffee shop and another at a grocery store. My parents said it was good for me, that it would teach me responsibility. Meanwhile, Tasha didn't pay for anything. She got a new phone, nice clothes, and spent weekends with her friends while I worked double shifts. Whenever I tried to say something, my mom would tell me, "You're older, Naomi. You should understand how life works." Every month, I handed them part of my paycheck for rent, even though deep down, it broke me a little more each time. I wanted to believe they were doing it for my own good. But sometimes I'd hear them whisper things like, "Tasha has potential. Naomi's just average." Those words cut deeper than anything else. Still, I kept quiet. I studied hard, paid my bills, and tried not to show how much it hurt watching my sister being treated like a princess while I was treated like a tenant in my own home. Tasha would sometimes tease me, saying, "Maybe if you were more fun, they'd love you like they love me." I'd laugh it off, but at night, I'd cry myself to sleep. By the time I was 20, I had learned to stop expecting fairness. I focused on my studies and my work, telling myself that one day, I'd build a life where I wouldn't need anyone's approval. I didn't know it then, but the same people who made me feel small were the reason I'd one day rise higher than any of them could imagine. Life during those years felt like a never-ending test I didn't sign up for. Every month, I'd hand over most of my paycheck to my parents for rent, then spend the rest trying to keep up with tuition, books, and food. I'd come home from class exhausted, only to hear my mom reminding me that life isn't fair. Whenever I asked why Tasha didn't have to pay for anything, it became their favorite phrase, a shield they used to justify everything they did. Tasha was living like a princess. On her 17th birthday, my parents surprised her with a shiny silver car, complete with a big red bow on top. They said she deserved something nice. I watched from the front porch, still in my work uniform, holding my textbooks. No one had ever thrown me a party or given me anything that grand. I clapped and smiled for her, pretending I was happy, but inside, I felt a sting I couldn't explain. At college, my friends started noticing how often I skipped outings or declined invitations because I couldn't afford them. When they found out I was paying rent to my parents, their faces twisted in disbelief. "You're kidding, right? They charge you rent," one of them asked. I forced a laugh and said, "They're just teaching me independence." But deep down, I knew I was lying, mostly to myself. I wanted to believe my parents loved me equally, that there was some bigger lesson behind all this. Sometimes, I'd sit in my room late at night doing homework, listening to the sound of laughter from the living room. Tasha and my parents would be watching movies, eating takeout, and enjoying their evening while I struggled to finish assignments for a scholarship I desperately needed. I told myself it was okay, that one day they'd be proud of me too. But that illusion shattered one quiet evening. I had just come home from a long shift at the grocery store and stopped by the kitchen to grab some water. My parents were in the dining room talking, not realizing I was standing nearby. My mom's voice was soft but clear. "Tasha will go far," she said. "She's got charm, confidence. Naomi, she's not really cut out for more." My dad chuckled and agreed. "Yeah, Naomi's the practical one. She'll be fine doing something simple." I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The people I had been working so hard to please, the ones I kept defending to everyone, didn't even believe in me. They saw me as the backup, the boring one, the daughter who would never shine. That night, lying awake in bed, something inside me shifted. The pain turned into something else, a quiet, burning determination. It was the first time I realized that maybe love shouldn't hurt this much. Graduation day was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I had worked for years without rest, late nights, double shifts, endless studying. When I finally crossed that stage and received my degree with honors, I thought maybe, just maybe, my parents would finally see me. I thought they'd say they were proud, that all those sacrifices meant something. But when I got home, still in my graduation gown, my father handed me an envelope. I smiled, thinking it might be a card or maybe a small gift. But when I opened it, I froze. It was another rent notice. "You're still staying here until you move out," my dad said, his voice cold and practical. "We can't just let you live rent-free, even if you've graduated." My mom nodded in agreement like it was the most normal thing in the world. I stared at them, speechless. Not even a congratulations. Not a hug. Just a bill. Later that evening, my parents hosted a small party to celebrate. Friends and family came over, and for a while, I tried to smile through the pain. Then, right in the middle of the celebration, Tasha stood up and said, "I've decided I'm moving to LA to figure out what I want to do with my life." Everyone clapped. My parents' faces lit up with excitement. "That's wonderful," my mom exclaimed. "We'll help you get settled, sweetheart. You deserve a fresh start." Deserve. That word echoed in my head like a cruel joke. I looked at them, the same people who had taken my money for years, now offering to pay for Tasha's big adventure. My chest tightened, and I couldn't hold it in anymore. "So she gets to move across the country for free while I've been paying rent in my own home?" I said, my voice shaking. The room went silent. My dad sighed, clearly annoyed. "Naomi, don't start this today. You're responsible. You can handle yourself. Tasha still needs our help." My mom added, "You should be proud of her for taking a chance." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Proud. I'd been fighting to survive while they rewarded her for doing nothing. I felt something snap inside me. Years of quiet resentment, swallowed anger, and unspoken pain came rushing out. "You don't treat family like this," I said. "You've made me feel like a stranger in my own house." My dad's expression hardened. "We raised you to be responsible," he repeated. "That's what this is about." I looked at them one last time, realizing nothing I ever did would be enough. I went upstairs, packed my bags, and walked out of that house before midnight. The wind felt cold on my face, but it was the first time in years I could breathe. That night, I promised myself I would never need them again, and one day, they would see what I was truly capable of. Moving to Atlanta felt like stepping into a different world. For the first time in my life, I had no one telling me what I owed or how I should live. I found a tiny apartment with a roommate named Kayla, who worked in marketing. It wasn't fancy, the walls were thin, and the heater made strange noises, but it was mine. For the first few nights, I slept on a mattress on the floor and stared at the ceiling, scared but free. A week later, I started my first full-time job at a real estate firm downtown. I didn't know much at first, but I was eager to learn. I stayed late, took notes during meetings, and asked questions no one else bothered to ask. My boss noticed my dedication and slowly began giving me more responsibility. While others clocked out at 5, I stayed until 9, learning how the market worked, how to spot undervalued properties, and how to turn them into profit. The first few years were hard. I skipped vacations, cooked cheap meals, and worked weekends to save money. But I started seeing results. My first investment was a small, beat-up house in a rough neighborhood. I took a risk, used my savings, and flipped it with help from a contractor friend. When it sold, I made enough to invest again. And again. Each project taught me something new: how to manage budgets, negotiate deals, and trust my instincts. As time passed, I built a name for myself. People started calling me the quiet closer, because I didn't talk much. I just got things done. By 27, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I had multiple properties under my name and a comfortable savings account. I bought a small but beautiful apartment with a balcony overlooking the city skyline. Standing there at night, watching the lights flicker, I often thought about the girl who once paid rent to her parents just to exist. She'd come a long way. My parents still called once in a while, usually to talk about Tasha. "She's modeling now," my mom would say proudly. "She just got a photo shoot in Miami." I'd smile, say, "That's great," and hang up. Every conversation was the same, full of praise for Tasha's big dreams, with no interest in mine. They never asked how I was doing, and I never offered to tell them. But sometimes late at night, I'd replay those old memories, the rent money, the graduation night, the words I overheard, and I'd feel that familiar sting. Not of pain, but of motivation. I didn't need their approval anymore. Their doubts had built the fire that fueled me. Every deal I closed, every key I held, was proof that I had made it, not because of them, but in spite of them. Almost 10 years had passed since the night I walked out of that house. I had built my life from the ground up, and every scar from my past had turned into quiet strength. One morning, as I was sipping coffee in my office overlooking the city, my phone buzzed with a call from an old neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins. She had watched me grow up, always kind, always curious. Her voice sounded hesitant when she said, "Naomi, I thought you should know, your parents' house is being foreclosed." For a moment, I didn't say anything. My chest tightened as her words sank in. That house, the one where I had cried, worked, and learned what pain felt like, was about to be taken away from them. Mrs. Jenkins went on, explaining how things had fallen apart. Tasha moved back home a couple of years ago. Said things didn't work out in Los Angeles. They've been struggling ever since. Clarence lost his job, and Denise's health hasn't been good. It's a mess. After the call ended, I just sat there staring at the city skyline, my mind spinning. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for them, but another part, a darker, quieter part, felt a strange satisfaction. The people who once told me I wasn't cut out for more had lost everything. I hated myself for even thinking it, but I couldn't deny it. The emotions mixed inside me like oil and water: pity, anger, sadness, revenge, and something close to closure. I spent the rest of the day thinking about what to do. I didn't want to gloat or humiliate them. I just wanted to take back the place that had taken so much from me. That house had been my cage once. Maybe now it could be something else. By evening, I made my decision. I called a friend who worked in property law and asked him to look into the foreclosure. I told him to make the purchase through a holding company, one that wouldn't have my name anywhere on the papers. I didn't want them to know it was me, not yet. This wasn't about revenge. It was about control, about finally reclaiming what was stolen from me years ago. A week later, I got the call. The deal was done. The house was officially mine. I drove by it that night, parking across the street. The windows were dim, the paint chipped, the garden overgrown. It looked smaller than I remembered, weaker somehow, like time had stripped away its pride. I sat there for a long time, watching the shadows move across the porch where I once used to sit and dream of freedom. As I drove away, I didn't smile or cry. I just whispered to myself, "It's mine now." For the first time, those words didn't come from pain. They came from power. Driving back into the old neighborhood felt like stepping into a dream I'd tried to forget. The streets were narrower than I remembered, the paint on the houses faded, the air heavier with silence. I parked a few blocks away from my parents' place and took a slow breath. To them, I was just a potential buyer, someone interested in the property listed for sale. To me, it was a walk through everything I had survived. When I reached the gate, the sight nearly stopped me. The once bright blue paint had peeled off, revealing splinters of gray wood underneath. The flowers my mother used to plant every spring were gone, replaced by dry weeds. I knocked gently, and after a few seconds, my mother opened the door. She looked older, tired eyes, thinning hair, lines etched deep into her face. For a moment, she didn't recognize me. Then her expression changed, a flash of surprise followed by discomfort. "Naomi," she whispered. I smiled politely. "It's been a while. I heard the house was for sale. I wanted to take a look, purely business." She hesitated, then called out, "Clarence, you'll never guess who's here." My father came from the back, slower than I remembered, wearing the same stern look that once made me feel small. His voice cracked slightly. "Well, look who's turned into a city woman." Inside, the house smelled like dust and memories. The same old furniture filled the living room, though it was worn and faded. I glanced at the hallway and saw the door to my old room, my rented room, still there. I couldn't help but walk in. The walls were the same dull yellow, and the corner where I used to study still had the small dent from when I dropped my bookshelf years ago. My chest tightened. My parents followed behind, talking about how hard things had gotten since the market crashed. "Your father's retirement plans didn't work out," my mother said. "And you know how people are these days, nobody helps family anymore." I nodded, pretending to understand, pretending I hadn't been the daughter they'd charged rent to while letting my sister live freely. I listened as they complained about the bank, the bills, and the ungrateful world. They never once apologized, never once mentioned the years of silence. When I left that day, I shook their hands like a stranger and told them I'd think about the offer. But in truth, I had already made my decision. A week later, I I sat in a quiet office downtown, signing the purchase papers. My heart raced as the pen moved across the page, sealing the deal. The house, the same one that once made me feel unwanted, was officially mine. No one knew it yet. My parents believed a private buyer had saved them from the bank. They had no idea the person behind the name on those documents was the same daughter they had once charged rent to just for having a place to sleep. When I pulled up to the house again, this time there was no disguise, no secret reason to hide who I was. I parked right in front, stepped out in my pressed suit, and walked to the same door I'd once been afraid to knock on as a child. My heart thudded in my chest, but my face stayed calm. I had rehearsed this moment in my head for weeks. It was time for the truth to come out. My mother opened the door, her expression tight with confusion. "Naomi again? Did you forget something?" I smiled slightly. "Actually, I'm here to discuss the property situation." She frowned. "Property situation? What do you mean?" My father appeared behind her, still holding a cup of coffee, his face lined with exhaustion. "What's this about, Naomi? Are you with the bank?" I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. The living room felt smaller now, the air heavy with unspoken things. "Not with the bank," I said softly. "I'm here as the owner." For a few seconds, silence filled the room. My father blinked, as if he didn't hear me right. "The owner," he repeated slowly. "What are you talking about?" My mother's hand trembled, and she looked from him to me. "Naomi, you didn't." "Yes," I interrupted quietly. "I bought the house." My father's coffee cup slipped from his hand, shattering on the tile. He didn't even flinch. "You bought this house? You mean the company that—" "The company is mine," I said. "I made the purchase through a holding firm. I wanted to handle this privately." Tasha, who had been listening from the hallway, finally stepped into view. Her hair was messy, her expression full of disbelief. "Wait, so you're our landlord now," she said with a half-laugh. "That's insane." I turned to her, my eyes steady. "I learned from the best, remember? You all taught me responsibility." My mother's voice cracked. "Naomi, why would you do something like this? We're family." I almost laughed, but the sound got stuck in my throat. "Family?" I said quietly. "You charged me rent in this same house when I was barely 18. You made me pay to live in my own room while I nodded toward Tasha, got everything for free. You called it responsibility. So, I guess I took your lesson to heart." My father's face turned red. "You think this is some kind of payback?" "No," I said firmly. "This is closure." The room went silent again. My mother's eyes filled with tears, but I didn't move. Tasha folded her arms, still in denial. The air grew thick with years of tension, every unspoken wound hanging between us. For the first time, they saw me not as the quiet daughter they could control, but as someone who had built her own world without their help. And from the look in their eyes, I could tell they finally realized what that truly meant. Clarence's voice boomed through the living room, sharp and trembling. "You bought our house behind our backs? How could you, Naomi? After everything we did for you." His eyes burned with a mix of shame and fury. Naomi stood still, her calmness almost frightening. "Everything you did for me?" she repeated, her tone soft but cutting. "You mean charging me rent while Tasha lived for free? Making me feel like a guest in my own home?" Denise tried to step in, wringing her hands nervously. "We were only trying to teach you responsibility," she said, her voice quivering. "You always had that serious look, always independent. We thought—" Naomi interrupted, her words precise and steady. "You thought I could handle being treated like an outsider. You thought it was okay to teach me lessons while spoiling her." She turned to face Tasha, whose arms were crossed defensively, chin tilted high. "And you, did you ever once think of me when you asked for more? When they paid your bills, bought you cars, sent you on trips while I worked double shifts?" Tasha's voice cracked as she spoke, her confidence crumbling. "I didn't ask for any of that. You're acting like it's my fault they loved me more." Naomi's laugh was dry and tired. "You didn't have to ask. They gave it to you because you were their favorite, because I was already used to earning everything I wanted. They gave you ease, and they gave me lessons. But look where those lessons brought me." Denise started crying softly. "We didn't mean to hurt you, Naomi. We just wanted both of you to find your own way." Naomi's eyes glistened, but she refused to look away. "I found my way, Mom. But it wasn't because of you, it was despite you." Her voice trembled slightly now, the years of pain leaking through. "Do you know what it felt like to be 18 and paying rent to live in the same room where I grew up? To hear you say Tasha deserved help because she was chasing her dreams? I had dreams too. I just had to build mine quietly. Clarence's fists clenched. You think money makes you better than us now? You think buying this house gives you the right to humiliate your parents? Naomi shook her head slowly. No, Dad. I didn't buy this house to humiliate anyone. I bought it because I wanted to own the pain that built me. I wanted to take back what I was forced to leave behind. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was Denise's quiet sobs and the creaking of the old floorboards. Naomi took a deep breath, steadying herself. I didn't come here to hurt you, she said softly. I came to remind you of what you created and what you lost in the process. The silence that followed was heavier than any words they could have spoken. Naomi stood by the kitchen counter, the same counter she used to scrub after dinner while her parents relaxed in front of the TV. The smell of old wood and fading memories filled the air. Clarence sat at the table, his head in his hands. Denise stood by the sink, her eyes red from crying. Tasha leaned against the wall, speechless for once. The air between them was thick, with guilt, pride, and the weight of years unspoken. Naomi's voice cut through the silence. Here's how this goes, she said calmly. You have two choices, buy the house back from me, or move out within 60 days. Denise gasped. Naomi, please, you can't be serious. This is your home too. Naomi looked around the room, her expression unreadable. It stopped being my home the day you made me pay to live here. Clarence's eyes flared with disbelief. You'd really throw your own parents out into the street? Naomi met his stare head-on. You threw me out long before I had the means to stand on my own. The difference is, I'm giving you a choice. Tasha spoke up timidly. Come on, Naomi, this isn't you. You're not cruel. Naomi turned toward her, voice low and steady. Cruel? No. Just done. She pulled a folder from her bag and slid it onto the table. These are the documents. You have 60 days to decide what you want to do. I'm not here to debate it. Denise reached for Naomi's hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. We didn't mean to hurt you. Your father thought. Clarence interrupted, his tone softer now, breaking under the weight of his own pride. I thought you could handle it, Naomi. You were always stronger than your sister. More focused. I figured if I pushed you harder, you'd go further. Naomi blinked, her composure wavering for the first time. She stared at him, the man who had measured her worth in rent money and resilience. You were right, she said quietly. I could handle it, but you forgot that I would remember it. Clarence's shoulders slumped. He looked smaller somehow, worn down by the truth that had finally found him. Naomi set a small keyring on the counter. These are the extra keys, she said. Keep them if it makes you feel better. But remember, they open doors that don't belong to you anymore. Denise sobbed harder, clutching her apron like a lifeline. Naomi, please. Naomi shook her head. This isn't revenge. It's closure. You taught me how to survive without love, and now I'm simply living what I learned. She turned toward the door, the sound of her heels echoing through the house. At the doorway, she paused and glanced back once, not with hate, but finality. You said I could handle it, she said softly. Now you'll handle this. Then she walked out, leaving behind the keys, the pain, and the ghosts of the home that once broke her. The day Naomi returned, the sky was gray, the kind that made old memories feel closer. She parked in front of the house that once defined her childhood and stepped out, holding the official papers that confirmed what she already knew. The house was hers completely. No more delays, no more calls, no more pleading messages from her parents. They were gone. Moved out quietly a week earlier, leaving only silence behind. Naomi stood at the door for a long moment before turning the knob. The air inside was still and heavy, carrying faint traces of her past. The scent of Denise's cooking, the echo of Tasha's laughter, her father's sharp voice reminding her to pay on time. The walls felt smaller now, but she wasn't the same scared girl who once lived within them. She was the woman who had outgrown them. She walked through each room slowly. Her old bedroom was bare except for a nail on the wall where her graduation photo used to hang. She touched it gently, smiling through the ache. I made it, she whispered. The living room still had the faded sofa, the same one where her parents once told her she wasn't cut out for more. She remembered that night clearly, the sting of their words, the way her dreams nearly broke. And yet, here she was standing taller than all their doubts. When she reached the kitchen, she paused. This was where she used to pay rent, leaving envelopes on the counter every month like a tenant, not a daughter. She ran her fingers along the worn surface and exhaled deeply. The anger she had carried for years didn't burn anymore. It had cooled into something steadier, understanding. Instead of tearing the house down, Naomi decided to rebuild it. Within weeks, she hired a team, repainting the walls, fixing the roof, replacing the cracked tiles. The place began to look alive again, not like the home that broke her, but like the one she wished she'd had. She transformed it into a small rental property for single mothers, women who were struggling the way she once did, trying to make it on their own with little help. Each room she restored held a new purpose, each corner filled with quiet redemption. The first tenant, a young mother named Brianna, hugged Naomi the day she moved in, tears in her eyes. "You have no idea what this means to me," she said. Naomi smiled, feeling something loosen inside her. "I think I do," she replied softly. Standing on the porch that evening, Naomi looked out at the street where she used to walk to school, head down, dreaming of escape. Now she didn't need to run, she had already won. Her revenge hadn't come from making them suffer, but from rising so high that their cruelty no longer reached her. For the first time in her life, Naomi felt free, not from her family, but from the weight of needing their love. Do you think Naomi did the right thing by taking back the house and turning her pain into purpose? Or should she have forgiven her family and let it go? I'd really love to hear what you think. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if stories like this move you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next one.